Mr. Malillo has the first round of questions for 6 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank the Minister for making the time to join our committee today. I appreciate that. Minister, you speak of the transparency that this program provides. However, a report by the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development found that Natural Resources Canada overestimated the reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that it expected under the onshore program. So a question to you, Minister, do you believe that this overestimation was a result of human error, or was it deliberately misstated?
The discussion with the Commissioner, and I've had a number of discussions with him about this, relates to the boundary conditions. And the Commissioner took a much broader definition of the boundary conditions. Our focus was on the source of the emissions and the reductions that took place within that source. So if, for example, there was another project miles away that was started during the course of the program, it was not counted. We were focused on reducing emissions at the source. In that context, this program reduced 4.7 megatons of CO2 during the first two intakes. So it succeeded significantly in ensuring that there was a continuing focus on methane reduction during a period of very significant financial stress for the companies in the oil and gas space.
Thank you, Minister. And when you became aware and when officials from your department became aware that this has been overstated, were there any prompt changes to the program or any action taken by yourself or those in the department?
Well, again, I don't agree with the characterization of overstated. The boundary conditions that were used in developing and implementing this program were based on the World Resource Institute Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is used globally for GHG reduction projects. It provides for the accounting and the reporting of GHG reductions. I would note that in terms of methodology, it is what the International Energy Agency itself utilizes. So there's a difference in perspective with the Commissioner in terms of the boundary conditions. I would tell you that if you're focused on the source of methane emissions, which I think we must be if we're looking to reduce them, the reductions were about 4.7 megatons during the first two calls for proposals, which is about 1 million cars off the road.
Thank you. And in keeping with you talk about the reduction targets. The emission reduction target, if I'm not mistaken, was between 0 and 3.7 megatons for CO2. Just a question. In your view, would a reduction goal of 0 be acceptable in your view?
As I say, the focus of the program was twofold. It was to maintain jobs in the oil and gas space at a time when we actually had negative energy prices for a period of time, and there was a lot of stress in the sector. And it was also to keep companies focused on reducing emissions from these sources.
But would you consider a reduction of 0 emissions a success, as that is
Well, what
stated? I'm
saying to you is the actual reductions were 4.7 megatons of CO2 equivalent, which is the equivalent of 1 million cars on the road. Should be successful.
Okay, thank you, Minister. You also noted in your opening remarks, and I believe in the past, you've mentioned this before as well, is sort of in a defense of the, I'd say, defense of the underperformance on emission reduction. You've claimed that the program has helped to create jobs and helped to save jobs. However, I note that the program doesn't include job retention in its criteria for eligibility or funding assessment. So, in your view, Minister, how could the government actually guarantee that this funding would lead to Canadian jobs being saved if it wasn't a requirement set out?
I think it was pretty evident to anybody who was observing what was happening in the sector that there was significant concern about loss of jobs, just given the nature of what was happening with respect to energy prices. Given the circumstances and the timing, there was no reasonable nor credible way to have this information provided up front. So we designed the program to obtain these figures following the project's implementation, and these will be publicly reported. But I would say that the anecdotal evidence is entirely clear. Many service companies and technology companies have been employed to make these things happen. And communities from places like Estevan and Slave Lake and Brandon, the mayors have put out statements saying, effectively, the project has supported economic activity and jobs in our region and will meaningfully reduce emissions. This is the mayor of Brandon. So I think, again, on that score, the program has been successful.
Thank you. And just a simple question on a follow-up to that, given that, as you claim, job retention was a goal of the program, was there, what would be your rationale, I guess, Minister, as to why that was not baked right into the eligibility rules?
Well, as I say, this was brought into place very rapidly in order to respond to what was an economic crisis in the sector. And it was something that many in Western Canada were calling for. And so what we did in order to respond in a reasonable period of time to the crisis that existed in the sector was to bring forward a program which said, we recognize that there is this challenge. We recognize that people are going to be laid off. And we are going to respond to that, and we are going to require the reporting on job retention numbers at the back end of the program, and they will all be public.
I don't have much time left, so I'll hand that back to the